scripture text comes to us this evening from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10. Mark chapter 10. We're going to be reading verses 46 through 52. Now they came to Jericho. As he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great multitude, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the road begging. But when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Then many warned him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." So Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. Then they called the blind man, saying to him, "Be of good cheer, rise, he is calling you." And throwing aside his garment, he rose and came to Jesus. So Jesus answered and said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said to him, "Rabboni, that I may receive my sight." Then Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your faith has made you well." And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the road. His name was Bartimaeus, blind Bartimaeus. And through his blinded eyes, the world was just a drab, colorless forest of darkness. Day after day, Bartimaeus sat along the roadside begging as the busy world just rushed all around him. He had a story to tell, but nobody wanted to listen. He longed for a gentle touch or a kind word or even the slightest hint of human compassion. But most everyone just passed by him on their way somewhere else. Soon Bartimaeus felt the hem of someone's garment brush against his outstretched hand, and in desperation he reached out and he grabbed a hold of the garment and made his usual plea, "Alms for the poor, alms for the poor." The passerby brushed back Bartimaeus' hand and reluctantly plunked in a single coin in his cup. And Bartimaeus heard the man mumble cursings under his breath as he hurried off. This is what life was like for a blind beggar. Bartimaeus had learned to just take whatever came his way, be it a coin in the cup, or a slap on the hand, or a blessing, or a cursing. But on this particular day, what came his way was the rumble of a large crowd. And in the midst of that crowd, there was a man named Jesus. Fame of Jesus' miraculous healing powers had spread far and wide by this point in his ministry. And Bartimaeus has heard that Jesus can even give sight to someone who's blind. He thinks to himself, "I'm blind. I'm someone. Why not me?" And like a stone sitting in the middle of a moving stream, Bartimaeus sits there with the crowd of people just flowing all around him. And he realizes they're soon going to pass by, and he knows he's got to act quickly. And so in desperation, Bartimaeus cries out, "Son of David, have mercy on me." The insensitive crowd shushes Bartimaeus as though they're doing Jesus a favor. But undeterred by their complaints, Bartimaeus only intensifies his efforts. He cries out even louder, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus is drawn to that desperate voice. That desperate voice that everybody else is just trying to ignore. And so Jesus stops and he calls for the blind man. And Bartimaeus awkwardly rises to his feet and begins to move his way through the crowd toward Jesus. And once he was face to face with Jesus, Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" Now think about that. The very Son of God was assuming the position of a lowly servant before a blind beggar. Jesus said, "What do you want me to do for you?" Without any hesitation, Bartimaeus answered, "Lord, I want to see. I want to see. I want out of this prison of darkness that I'm in. I want to get off of this roadside. I don't want to have to beg for a living anymore. I just want a normal life like everybody else. Lord, I want to see. I want to see a sunrise or sunset. I want to see a full moon and a starry night. I want to see children laughing and playing. I want to see a friend passing by on the street and be able to wave to him. I just want to see." And in an instant, Jesus, the light of the world, brought light into the eyes of blind Bartimaeus. And for the very first time in his life, Bartimaeus sees a kaleidoscope of colors and images that he's never seen before. Brilliant sunlight floods his eyes, and the deep blue sky with billows of white fluffy clouds is even more beautiful than he ever imagined before. Buildings that he'd always touched with his hands to navigate from one place to another were now plainly visible to him. He could see them. And for the very first time, he can actually put faces with the voices that his sensitive ears had heard all those many years. And then Bartimaeus turns and he looks into the face of Jesus. Never before had his eyes beheld the look of tenderness and compassion until now. His faith in Jesus Christ had brought him healing. He had the kind of faith that would cause him to risk making a fool out of himself by shouting to the top of his lungs in a crowd of people. He had enough faith to dare to ask for a miracle, something that God and God alone could give to him. Bartimaeus had faith, and Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your faith has made you well." As the Scripture says, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." His faith had made him well. Blind Bartimaeus had seen the invisible, he had believed the impossible, and he received the incredible. You know, for those of us who have been blessed with sight, it's just as hard for us to imagine not being able to see as it is for a blind man to imagine being able to see. And we've all experienced momentary blindness of some sort, like when someone puts a blindfold on us when we're playing a silly party game. Like when I was driving over here this evening and the sun is setting and I'm staring right into the sun, that was like being momentarily blinded. Or like those times when a storm knocks out the power and we find ourselves groping through the house trying to find a flashlight or a candle. We know what it's like to be momentarily blinded. But do we truly know what it's like to live in a world of total darkness? Complete, total darkness. We had a blind woman in my home church back in Indiana. Her name was Mabel Ragsdale. And every Christmas, our senior high youth group would go to Miss Mabel's house to Christmas carol. And I'll be honest with you, it was always kind of scary to go to her house because it looked like a haunted house at Halloween. There were never any lights on inside the house. There was no light coming from a TV. She didn't have a TV. There were no lamps on in the house. She didn't even have a security light out in her yard. It was just pitch black. And when we would get out of our vehicles and start making our way up her long lane to her house to do the Christmas caroling, our flashlights would hit that wire. The light of our flashlights would hit that wire that she had running from her back door out to her mailbox so she could find her way to get her mail. And we could see with our flashlights another wire that she had running from her back door out to her barn so she could feed her cats. And as we would stand there singing Christmas carols, we were never sure if Miss Mabel was even aware we were there, because it was just pitch black. And then finally, the door would slowly open and she would emerge out of the darkness and we could see her out of the glare of our flashlights. And she would stand there and thank us for coming by to Christmas carol and to remember her at Christmas time. Can you imagine what it would be like to go your whole life and never see the faces of your loved ones? Can you imagine what it would be like to go a whole lifetime and never be able to see the beautiful decorations of Christmas? Or the blossoming of springtime flowers, or to see a ground blanketed in the white of snow? What if we never got to see those things? Can you imagine what it would be like to not even be able to distinguish the difference between night and day? Or imagine never being able to see the face of your parents or your children or your grandchildren. And imagine what it would be like to never see your son or daughter's baptism, or to see them play in a ball game, or to see them walk across the stage to receive their diploma at graduation, or to see them get married. Imagine what it would be like to not see any of those things. We tend to take a lot for granted, don't we? Including our eyesight. We just take for granted that when we get up in the morning, we're going to see. But what if we didn't? But you know something? Physical blindness is not the worst thing that can happen to someone. Helen Keller once said, the only thing worse than being blind is having vision but no sight. Some people suffer from mental blindness. There's a lot of people who live under such a shroud of depression and negativity that they can't even see all the blessings they've got in their life, because they're so obsessed with all their troubles and problems. They're blind to the good things. Some people suffer from moral blindness. We recently saw a tragic example of moral blindness when 64-year-old Stephen Paddock opened fire with his assault rifle and killed those 59 people and wounded over 500 innocent concert goers out there in Las Vegas. How could somebody just extinguish the lives of so many innocent people he didn't even know? People who had never met, people who had never done anything wrong to him. How could he do something like that? It was because he was morally blind. He saw nothing wrong with his actions. Some people are blinded by pride. You remember Jesus' parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector in Luke 18. Jesus said the Pharisee prayed to himself, God, I thank you that I'm not like other men, extortioners and unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector over here. I fast twice a week and I give tithes of all that I possess. That man, that Pharisee, was so blinded by his own pride and self-righteousness, he couldn't even see what a miserable wretch of a sinner he was. And you know, there's a lot of people like that. They're blinded by pride. And then there are a lot of people who are blinded by prejudice. Have you ever seen a time in your life when racial hatred and bigotry was worse than it is right now in this country. And it's not just limited to racial prejudice. Many people in this country are blinded by prejudice toward police officers. Many are blinded by prejudice toward President Trump. Many are blinded by prejudice towards us Christians. You see, multitudes of people in the world suffer from a kind of blindness that's just as bad, if not worse, than physical blindness. But without a doubt, the worst kind of blindness of all is spiritual blindness. How tragic it is when someone is blind to his or her own sins. How tragic it is when someone is so blind they can't see that they're eternally lost without Jesus Christ. And there are multitudes of people like this in the world who are staggering through the darkness of sin, who have never seen the light of the world. And some of these blind people are our own relatives, our own friends, who still can't see their need for Jesus Christ. And all the while, Jesus is asking the question, what do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to do for you? And you know, while we should have great compassion upon those who are physically blind, we need to have great compassion on those who are spiritually blind as well. I saw a homeless beggar on my way to work each day. I never paid him much mind as I went along my way. But this day he looked saddened and his eyes began to weep as he held his cup out pleading to the people along the street. I paused to ask a question of the blind man sitting there. What virtue is there in begging, or do you even care? Blind, he said. How silly. It is they who are blind, not me, who can't see the virtue in simple charity. No, I cannot see their faces, nor do I know their names, but pity I have for them, for I can feel their shame. They pass by me each morning, again most every night, yet never stop to lend a hand to a brother in his plight. Their hearts are full of apathy. How little do they fear that only by the grace of God they could be sitting here. I feel their footsteps pounding as they go along their way, all of them too busy to enjoy this lovely day. They will not hear the flutter of the sparrow's wings in flight or listen to the love song the warble sings through the night. Nor will they stop to listen to the music of the breeze as it gently plays its heartstrings through the branches of the trees. But as I knelt a little closer, in the dim light I could see that the blind man I had pitied was none other than me. My heart became so heavy and my eyes soon welled with tears as I thought of all the needy I had passed down through the years. I understood the message now and how changed my life would be, for only through a blind man's eyes was I finally able to see. You know, one of our favorite Christian hymns is Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. 'Twas what? 'Twas blind, but now I see. Perhaps this evening the Holy Spirit has opened your eyes to some areas of your life where perhaps you have been blind. And if so, I pray that you will take these matters to heart and that you will try to resolve these issues of blindness that may be in your life. Resolve those matters and ask the Lord to help open your eyes and just say, Lord, I want to see. I want to see. We're going to